Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years and shares her insights on the local housing market. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. Hey, good morning and a pleasure to have you with Missoula Real Estate Today. Diane Beck is not with us, but she sent, I guess you could say, an old friend of the radio station here. Been on the air a time or two. Radd Icenoggle, photographer and videographer. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Good nice to see you.
Likewise, and we'll get to that, of course, but my reference to an old friend of the radio station who used to do a show on here. You had the last best beer show, right?
Yeah, I think we did it for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What all was involved in the last? First off, how did you get involved in doing a last best beer show?
Well, I'm a beer geek, and I helped. I was a beer enthusiast, and then I helped get Lolo Peak Brewing up and going. I was their first media and marketing director, just to get them off the ground and get them running. And so I'd been in the beer geek community. I've done beer blogs, and I take pictures of beer and all these things. And the previous host was a friend of mine, and he was not going to do the show anymore. He's like, "You want to take it over?" And I'm like, "Sure." So with no experience, there I am in front of a microphone, and away we go.
That's an interesting industry, isn't it? The microbrew biz. It just seems to be flourishing.
It is. I've been one of those guys for the last 3 years ago. We're going to reach market saturation. No more breweries. It can't sustain. And then Guild and Conflex come on the scene, and they're both doing splendid. So don't trust my market advice.
Okay. So in case some of you had heard the name, wow, Radd Icenoggle. Why do I know Radd? Last Best Beer Show was on KGVO for a couple of years, but you are here as a photographer and videographer, and we'll talk about many different aspects of that and what you do in your profession, but we're focusing, of course, a little bit on real estate, Missoula Real Estate Today. And how did you get involved in that profession?
Well, really, it was from the beer stuff. So I've been a photographer and video guy for years, mostly doing wildlife and landscape stuff and a lot of bird stuff. So I wrote this bird field guide, and that's the whole other part of my life is the other B, birds. And I literally had a customer at the brewery who was a real estate agent go, "Would you shoot my house?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I've never done it." I think I charged him $100. It was nothing. And just from there, and that was about 5 years ago. And from that point, and after about a year of like picking up little side gigs, like, oh, let's really try to make this work as a business.
Has it amazed you that there's something that has changed a lot over the years in terms of it becoming a much more visual type of sales presentation? I mean, yeah, you see maybe there's an ad for an open house. Oh, there's a neighborhood I'd like. Oh, it's got the right number of bedrooms we want. Oh, the bathroom's perfect and all that. But the expectations are so much different. Where are the 400 photos and where is the little video? And it's just amazing, isn't it? Just how much more important that's become. And it's really, in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that is just a major consumer expectation.
Well, it's a consumer expectation, and the weird part about it is not only selling that individual property, where I think the photography comes in, is essential to selling, and it is. But the added benefit for the agents that a lot of people don't think about is it's the credibility. Look, I'm making this extra step to make sure your home sells. I'm doing the most I can do to make your home look appealing to potential buyers. I'm not just running out there with my cell phone, snapping 12 pictures and calling it a day. So there is that idea that even for the agent, it's part of your marketing package beyond that one home. It's your overarching marketing package.
My guest is Radd Icenoggle, photographer and videographer. And let's get back to that first beer buddy of yours that said, "Hey, would you take a few pictures of my house? I want to show this house." How did it go? What did you think when you got done?
Well, thank goodness for YouTube, because I poured over every YouTube video I could find about shooting real estate. And so it's like, oh, do I do these angles? And the great thing about it is photography is photography. Composition is composition. So the same rules that I've used for wildlife and landscape still apply to architecture. You know, do you have foreground interests? Are you using rule of thirds? You have all these composition rules. They still hold true. The one learning curve, well, there's lots of learning curves, but the big one is learning how to light things and learning different techniques to make a room or a house look as good as it can. And so I've developed like some really unique processes over time to really make rooms and homes shine.
Do you have to, well, I'm sure you do. You go to the location, whether it be a house, a condo, whatever it is, you have to go there. And then into your mind, do you mentally prioritize, okay, this is the best room, this is going to get the best shots, this is the wow factor area of this house, I've really got to make this pop? I imagine it's case by case, house by house, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and usually what I do is when I first get into a home, the first thing I do is turn on all the lights. So that gives me an idea to survey the house. You know, what's the unique feature of the home? As I'm walking through, turning on the lights, oh, they have this really cool island in the kitchen. That's neat. What is different than just taking a standard, you know, here I am in the hallway, here's the great room. What other angles can I? So I'm actually working in my head, like kind of rehearsing, how do we go through the home and how do we both shoot and video? What are the unique angles? What makes it look as best as it can and as large as it can? It's really easy to make a room look small. The difficulty is to make a room look large.
Is there any such thing as taking too many photos? Or again, we get back to consumer expectation a little bit. Let's say, no, heck no, Denny, you can take 1 million of them, man, because that's what people want. They want to see everything. But there probably is maybe a law of diminishing returns, or you can saturate a little bit. But I would think that the minimum is probably pretty generous.
Yeah, well, and there is too many, and there's too many just in the work that I have to do in the processing.
Okay.
Also, but I tell every one of my clients is every shoot, I guarantee you 40 images. That's a minimum. I have never delivered 40. Bigger homes, I'll get around 120, 140. So this is a big package. But the reason why is I'm not asking the agent, hey, share all 120 of these. Now I want to give them enough images that they have some editorial control as well. So the agent is involved in that process. They're not just getting, oh, I'm stuck with these 20, I got to do these 20. They have, oh, we really like these 30. We really like these 35 images. And that's what they'll put up on the MLS on the listing.
Okay. And this is probably a good point to bring this up since you kind of referred to other realtors. This is Missoula Real Estate Today, Diane Beck's program. But you're essentially an independent photographer, videographer, and you work for a lot of different realtors among other people, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And you do other forms of work too, huh?
Yeah. So I actually started off doing, literally I picked up my first camera to shoot my thesis site when I was in graduate school. Okay. And I decided I liked photography, and I was a bird guy, so I started taking pictures of birds, and then that ends up into this book I wrote, and you get into bird photography, and you can make exactly a nickel with bird photography. There is zero money.
All right.
Did that, started doing landscape work, but it was my own work. So, every once in a while you sell a print, you do this sort of things, but like I was telling you before, is all those rules of composition apply. So it's kind of like that. You ever heard the Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hour rule? It takes you 10,000 hours to become a master at something. I've probably done the 10,000 hours. Not saying I'm a master, but I have that background of all that composition. So it really carried over the shooting real estate. It wasn't like, oh, I just picked a camera and now I'm trying to understand how to do this.
You brought up YouTube a little while ago. It's not just a photography medium to try to sell a house. You're, of course, involved in doing videos as well, yes?
Yep. I almost always do video along with the photo shoot. The reason why I think video is a great way to grab folks' attention. Now, once it's in the listing, I don't think video is all that enticing. But, man, on an agent's social media, when you share that video, one, especially something like Facebook, which is what a lot of the agents use more than anything else, you get a more of a organic boost without paying with video than you do an image. You'll get a better reach using a video. And Instagram, you shoot out that 59-second video, you got people's attention, quick, snappy. Now, when the people see a video and now they come to a listing, they're almost already pre-qualified. They've already shown interest. They really want to see this house. They're already enticed.
So what are the, I don't want to say the tricky part, but what are some of the key differences? Because what you're shooting, let's say you start with just photographs. You're starting with stills, and you're not photographing anything that's moving. I mean, you're showing inanimate objects. Here's the kitchen, and here's the living room, and here's the bedroom.
Right.
And there's no action there per se. But what makes it so you do a video as well? What makes that pop? What is the difference? Is it kind of the virtual tour effect of it, or how does that work?
All right. And I've told other people this, and they know I hate the very concept of virtual tours. I hate it to my core.
Why is that?
It's uninventive. It's led through. It's not creative.
Okay.
They're really boring. I don't think they grab. And a lot of people, they grab. I don't think clients and customers are really grabbed by virtual tours. But when you create a video, you have that sense of movement. Like when you're doing a nice pan shot going from one room to the corner into another room. Now you have this interesting visual, like, oh, that's as if I moved through here.
Gotcha.
And you can create a narrative with the video, especially when you start using the music, maybe a few stings of sound here and there,
right?
Pacing. Now you're creating this narrative of the home. So you can match something that matches kind of the attitude and the feeling of a home. And so someone's already thinking, oh, this is a country feel. Okay. Now we're going to acoustic guitar land. If it's a hip condo, hey, we're going to do something, a little more poppy
with you
kind of thing. But it's this idea of creating this narrative that really, I think, can entice potential buyers.
So this can become quite a production. I mean, just going in there, taking a few shots and doing a little video. You are, I guess you're trying to create kind of a mini movie about why you want to look at this house or you're interested in this house. Let me show you why you should be interested in this house.
Yeah. And a great example is like if it's a horse property. If there isn't one shot or one still of a horse in that package, well, what are you telling people? You're going to show people a picture of a corral? I get it. But if you show them a nice portrait of a horse, or if you're doing video, if you swing from a headshot of a horse and then you go past their head and there's the home in the background. Now I've already told you without telling you, this is a great horse property. Look at this great home. Look at this beautiful horse. This could be yours.
Yeah. I didn't ask you at the very start of the program. We talked about, well, I was doing the Last Best Beer show, and that sort of evolved into doing this because I knew a guy, et cetera, et cetera. But roughly how long have you been doing as a photographer and videographer for real estate?
For real estate, we're on to our 4th year now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I thought I had the chronology about right, but I don't think I specifically asked you. And our guest, Radd Icenoggle on Missoula Real Estate Today, talking about photographing and doing video for property for sale. But in your line of work, you're starting to see that it isn't just realtors that have an interest in your services for real estate, correct?
Right. You have a lot of the stories when you photograph these homes, the other part of the business is the architects. Architectural photography is very important, and it's not as transactional, right? An architectural package is, we want the outstanding shot at the best light, at the best day. So you have a little more discretion on how you shoot a property. It's a little more. The other thing that I've started doing is a lot of builders. Now, here's the opportunity for builders. You're building a home. If you have a photographer go out and shoot the process of that home. So I will go out usually once every 3 weeks, or give me a call. Hey, we're pouring the foundation today. We're putting up, the frame, whatever it is. I go out and shoot that. It seems really dull and boring, but it gives you content for your social media. So it looks like to potential customers for a builder, hey, look, I'm doing things. I'm always doing something. Look at this home we're building. But at the end, you have all these images and all this video and a final video that now when you go to the next potential client as a builder, you have this narrative that this is how we work. This is how we do things. And now that becomes your marketing materials. So the idea is you can do these things and they're not necessarily transactional where it's a one shot, it's a candy bar, right? You get a beautiful photo, you show it once, you sell a house, you don't ever think about it again. I think that's incorrect. I think how you get to look at things is, hey, this is part of my overall marketing. This is part of my presence. And so that's why with a lot of folks, I even go as far as to come up with different looks for that client. Some clients want ultra crisp, ultra sharp, high saturation images. Some other folks, their brand is a little more mellow. Hey, we're low key. So you're using muted colors, maybe more of a matte look to the finished product. And there's other things you can do in marketing just with the visual images to key in how this agent works and what their style is. Now,
I would think this is where creative editing or artistic license, if you will, really has to come into play, because I don't want to say you're necessarily doing a time-lapse narrative where you're starting from the foundation and all of a sudden, 45 seconds later, you see a complete house. It's not quite like that, but I think what you're trying to say a little bit is it's up to you now to interpret how that house came to be. That's got to take some work,
and to make it interesting. And, and actually, the first building I ever did that on was Lolo Peak Brewing.
Okay,
because
I say great looking building.
It is, it is. But I was on board before there was even a hole in the. I literally was telling a narrative through social media, through images and video of, hey, we're putting a hole in the ground, and why is this exciting? Hey, we're putting a foundation in. Why is this exciting? And so narrative. And the great thing, if you're a builder, you own the images, you own the photograph. Imagine at the end, you can have your great client, you built this beautiful building, this beautiful home for them, and now you can give them this material. Hey, look, this is for your scrapbook. You can always remember how this home was built.
And how did that part of it evolve? Architects and builders, contractors, whatnot, just word of mouth because they knew some realtors that you'd worked with, or did they kind of start, or did you kind of go out and find them a little bit and say, hey, this is another facet of what I can do that you might be interested in?
Word of mouth, but I never turned down an opportunity to market myself over a cocktail. So, if you find out the architect sitting next to you,
a shrewd lad over there.
But, largely it's been word of mouth.
All right.
Word gets out.
Yeah. And you had brought up a little bit about your licensing, because we're talking about licensing images. I mean, this is your product, of course, but you've come up with maybe what you might call a little bit different or unique approach to how you present that.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you work with a photographer, if anyone's ever done senior portraits for yourself or your kids, you understand they put all these limitations. And now if you want to print, you got to go back to them and get the print. And that's how they're making their ducats. In real estate, because what happens is you shoot this property, they give you one-time right usage, which means you can use it one time for one purpose. So maybe that's just the MLS listing. Okay. That is what you've purchased. I really don't like that. I view myself more as work for hire. This work was produced for you. You own it. So that's what I give to all my clients is, hey, if that image shows up on a billboard, I go, good for you. The only right that I receive out of all the images is the right to use it in my own marketing.
Okay. So you're essentially as a salesman here, and you got to put on the salesman hat, I guess, essentially making a one-time sale.
Yep.
If you decide to use this photo or this video 6 months from now, Radd Icenoggle will not come back and bite you in the butt for it.
Right. I'm not going, hey, I need my $1,000.
Right.
And one, I don't even want the overhead of trying to keep track of all that. And two is, I think it's fair to the agent to do that. I think it's fair to the client to do that. You're a hired gun, this coming back and tracking down images and asking for money on the flip side. And I think it creates tension as a relationship, as a client provider relationship. I think it makes a weird tension, because then they have to call you and go, is it okay if I do this?
Sure.
It's okay. Yeah. You do whatever you want with it.
My guest on Missoula Real Estate today is Radd Icenoggle, photographer and videographer, who's been involved the last few years doing that for pieces of property, for real estate, of course. But you talked a little bit about your background prior to that, wildlife photography and things like that. What are some of the really cool things that you did that you'll always remember? I mean, I assume you still do that, of course. You didn't hang that up to do this. You still do that, but you've probably had some pretty memorable experiences out there.
I think this past summer is probably it's not one instance, but me and my partner, we hiked 650 miles over the summer while working full time, while she's going through chemo, and I'm also shooting the whole time. And a lot of those shots, they have more meaning than what might be sellable or marketable.
Yeah, well, I can see why.
But they have more. So I think those are the ones. And maybe it's because they're more recent, but that's the ones that I look back at. Like I was going, you do your year end, and I'm reviewing images at New Year's, and I'm like, oh, there's some really good stuff. Or at least to me, it's really good.
Can you talk a little bit about where you were? You want to say?
Well, a great one is Diablo Mountain. I don't know if a lot of people. It's on the Bitterroots. It's the Idaho side of the Bitterroots.
Okay.
There's a lookout up there, usually unmanned. On this occasion, it had a volunteer was manning the lookout. We went up there, beautiful lanicular clouds hanging at the top of the peak, but warm lanicular clouds. And we took this selfie, which you don't do a lot of selfies, with my phone, but we actually set up the camera in the tripod and took this selfie. And every single thing about that image is right. The background, the scene behind, everyone looks great in the portrait. The light is great. The scene is great. The feeling's great. So it's
yeah.
That's probably the one that sticks out in my mind the most.
Did you notice my intelligent eye contact right now, where I looked at you knowingly, pretending I knew what lanicular clouds were? Did you happen to catch that?
You did.
Okay. All right. Good. I've lost my touch. No, but well done. By the way, I mean you painted that beautifully. Yeah. That's. So the process from start to eventual finish, a realtor gets a hold of you. Radd, I have this property, and you can't control the weather, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, it's maybe not when you get the air inversions and it gets foggy and there's kind of some frozen snow on the ground. Maybe not the most picturesque time of the year to be doing this as far as exterior. Interior don't matter, but as far as if you're trying to pan out and not only show the home, but you had mentioned. Hey, sometimes there's acreage and outbuildings and what have you.
Right.
But a realtor gets a hold of you. Radd, I need to get this done. What is the process there? You probably got an appointment book. You say, well, let's get it scheduled for such and such a date, or what do folks have to do to get it going with you?
Usually what I do is I take that call and I say, when do you need it? When's this listing going active? Because that's our drop dead, right? That is a thing that at this point neither of us can control. When is this listing going live? So I know when the drop dead is. First thing I do is look at the appointment book. Where are the gaps? Next thing I do is I pull up the weather, which is essentially a useless process because it never holds. But just to get an idea and go, hey, look, Wednesday morning looks like a great weather window. Let's do it Wednesday morning. And then I tell all my agents I have a 48-hour business hour turnaround. So I get within 2 days, I'm going to get you those images back. So this is when you're going to have your images and your video.
Okay.
And a lot of times what I try to do is I know if they're in a crunch, I'll get the images done first, get that to them right away. So that at least they can get the listing up. And then maybe the video comes 6 hours later or something like that.
Sure. Probably not a real fair question because it's, again, case by case. It depends on the size and whatnot. But typically, how many man hours are you talking about for you when obviously it's what the realtor / customer wants. Well, you want a video? No, I don't think I want a video. Do you want, or another one might say, hey, I would really like an extended video, things like that. It all depends, of course. But on average, man hours for to get ready for something like that.
Usually the formula that I tell people is for every hour I'm on site, there's at least 2.5 hours of sitting in front of a computer.
Sure.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So, and one of those reasons is I do this process that it's called this, but I use the term it's flambient, which is a different way of organizing, stacking your images to come up with the most realistic image of the room. So the room will be lit right. You can see through the windows. You know how you see the images and the windows are that opaque white? Mm-hmm. Drives me absolutely crazy. Unless there's a reason to have opaque white, like it's a construction site next door.
Right.
Then do what you can to hide that.
But if you think seeing out that window is worthy, then you want to be able to see out that window.
So this process takes additional time because I literally have to sit with a pen and tablet tool in Photoshop and paint that image. So you're stacking multiple photos, and I'm actually painting that image together. So it's weird to think about, but that's really the process to be. So that is more intensive. And then with video editing, so the typical is if you do like a 3-bedroom home, just a regular standard, middle income home, you're probably looking somewhere around 8 to 9 hours.
Right. Okay.
Per place. Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of ballpark in there. But talk about some of the equipment you have. Obviously, that technology is just ever changing, but you got some cool new toys.
I do got some new toys. We just recently purchased a 3-axis gimbal for our big camera. And what that allows us to do is now we can go through rooms and actually have movement, stepping forward and backwards with no jarring. It's steady video with movement going through rooms. So that is a very cool piece of equipment. It does me no good for stills, but it's a video only piece of equipment. And so that allows us to do all sorts, now it kind of, you have a certain repertoire that you're limited to by equipment and the steadiness of your hand. Now we've just kind of increased that radius of what we can do in terms of interesting visuals. The other piece of equipment that we got for New Year is we have a 6-foot slider, which is literally a 6-foot railing. The camera sits on the railing, and it's motorized. So now we can do like a sweeping pan from one room to the other that's completely steady, and maybe it takes 10 seconds. So it's not what you can do with your hands without getting all sorts of jitters. You ever take video with your phone?
Okay, all right, yeah.
You think you just have this great video, and you look at it, and it's just bouncing. No bounce.
Right, yeah.
And that slider is we can take long time. So like the exterior of the home, maybe there's some great clouds on a particular partly cloudy but sunny day.
Right.
We can do a moving time lapse with those clouds. So we can have like something in the foreground. Maybe it's a shrubbery or a cool part of the patio, whatever it is. But now there can be movement with that. So now with that storytelling, there's something else we can do. We like I said, our quiver of tools got much larger with these.
Yeah. And how about overhead via air? Anything new there?
Yeah, we do drone. We do drone stuff. Right. We picked up a new drone at the very beginning of last season. That thing is an absolute peach. I fell in love with it. I can't. Even though there's been a couple new pieces of equipment come out, I cannot dare part with it. So when it eventually dies, I'll probably cry a lot. But that's all equipment does. It eventually dies. But that's part of that quiver of tools. Yeah, and a lot of people, just do aerials. That's interesting. Well, I think aerials are great spice, but they're no different than anything else. And that might be something to kind of talk about too, is the way that licensing and cost. A lot of it's, if you want this, it costs extra. You want aerials. I view it all as the same quiver of tools. Whether you use aerial or don't, it's the same price. Because it's just, to me, that's just another camera. Just happens to be up in the air.
Radd Icenoggle, photographer and videographer on Missoula Real Estate Today. Believe it or not, man, we're down to about 1 minute here.
All right.
But I can't let you go without some contact info. If folks are interested in talking to you about your services, how do we get a hold of you anyway?
You can get a hold of me at 406-600-9688. And yes, I realize that's a Bozeman number, but I've had it forever. So
quite all right.
We're going to hold on. And you can also contact me at radd@raddicenoggle.com.
All right. Well, it's been great seeing you again.
Yeah.
Beer guy and now a real estate photographer guy. Loved having you on.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can talk again sometime soon on this program.
Well, it's been great, Denny.
Appreciate it. Radd Icenoggle, photographer and videographer here on Missoula Real Estate Today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next weekend. Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today. We hope you found this morning's information to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for any future Missoula Real Estate Today programs or any questions about buying or selling, contact Diane Beck with Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@realtor.com or visit our website, movetomissoula.com. That's move, the number 2, Missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.